Okay, good day, guys. Welcome back to the Formula Sports channel. Thanks for being here. Hope you guys are enjoying your day. And just reminding you guys to like the video. And if you are new here, kindly asking for you to support the channel by subscribing, as it does help the channel immensely. And of course, I always have to big up all who have already subscribed because we greatly appreciate it. Now, with formalities out the way, just wanted to talk a bit about Jamaican Spring Queen Shelly Ann Fraser Price recently making headlines for a lengthy post she shared on her social media, just basically calling on the respective authorities not to allow the recent spike in COVID-19 cases to deter the return of sports. And of course, we know the government promised or gave the green light for the return of sports. But what has taken place is that recently the island would have seen record numbers of COVID cases. And Shelley just wanted to let her voice be heard in light of some sentiments regarding proposed pause or regarding the proposed pause on the return of sports. Shelley said, and I quote, some stakeholders in the national conversation have bluntly said that in light of the spike of COVID-19 cases in Jamaica, government should hold off on granting permission to prospective sporting events holders. While I don't wish to make a political statement, from a point of view of good sense and logic, the perspective that the process established whereby permission for the holding of sporting events should be suspended is a perspective not shared by the majority of invested parties. There is no evidence at all that sporting events which have no spectators have contributed to or are likely to contribute to the future spike in COVID-19 cases locally. Now guys, I agree with our queen 100%, right? 100%. In fact, I think that the return of sports being delayed for so long is an utter disgrace and an utter travesty. Almost everywhere in the world, sports has resumed. The blueprint for reopening a sports industry has already been laid down in other countries, even with regard to high school sports. Now, tell me something, people. If high school sports can be going on in other countries, then why on God's earth there is no sports out here? Not even for one of the greatest female athletes ever, a multi-millionaire, world-renowned athlete like Shelly. We are also one of the top 5 countries in the world in track and field, and they still can't take sports seriously enough to resume it, especially track, and it is a non-contact sport at that. This is baffling to me. This is baffling to me. Our treatment of sports, especially track, shows our clumsy attitude towards sports. This clearly indicates that the delayed resumption of sports means the authorities have been dropping the ball on this issue, in my opinion. When you have a big star like Shelly not being able to properly prepare for her quest to regain the Olympic title and unnecessarily being prevented from adequately preparing, this is a travesty. And my thing is, if we are dealing with track and field like this, again, a non-contact sport that has done so much for Jamaica and that has provided so many opportunities for the country, opportunities that we have not even begun to exploit. This just really shows the clumsy and lackadaisical attitude that many, especially the older guard, still have as it pertains to sports. The sad truth is that, generally speaking, many of us still see sports as not important or as recreation, right? Even for a world class millionaire athlete like the Pocket Rocket, we don't see it as a profession. Because if you can be dealing with sporting icons in track and field like this, then this only shows me that the respective leaders in this country are incapable of exploiting the vast and untapped reservoir of billions of dollars, billions of US dollars at that is currently being ignored in the grossly underdeveloped sporting industry, an industry which, if properly developed, can add billions to the GDP of the nation. The sad truth is that this entire debacle just shows that the leaders lack vision and clearly don't see this obvious potential. When you have the Minister of Health in an interview, for example, with TVJ, saying, and I quote, "I am more than happy to sit down and talk to them referring to the respective sporting organizations, and continue the discussion because I understand the importance of sports." Now, guys, this is the interesting part of what Mr. Tufton said. From a number of perspectives, he says not just the competition, but for the mental state of persons who either are fans or who participate. Now, people, this statement tells you everything you need to know about how the authorities view sports. Nothing is said in this statement about the financial ramifications for these athletes and for the country, and loss of opportunity to improve their abilities and talent, which will in turn improve upon their financial compensation and situation. This statement shows us the exact subconscious attitude towards sports of one of the key individuals who is responsible for the resumption of sports in the Minister of Health, Mr. Tufton. Now, guys, you see why sports has not returned? You see why sports has not returned? The sad truth, my friends, is that these people still see sports as a playground, run up and down thing for young people, and don't understand the potential economic impact that sports can have on the nation and has been having on the nation, both directly and indirectly. And I too need to also state that this criticism has absolutely nothing to do with politics, as I don't care for any political party. Right? That just needs to be made clear. I was also looking for an online clip as well that I was watching a while back with another major sporting stakeholder. If I'm not mistaken, it was the president of a major sports association in the country. Right now, off the top of my head, I don't remember. Where the individual was sharing similar thoughts along the lines of what Minister Tufton was saying. But unfortunately, as hard as I tried, I could not find the clip to quote the gentleman precisely. But according to my memory, it was even worse and more upsetting than Minister Tufton's statement. And especially given the fact that it came from a major stakeholder in the sporting industry, made it even more irritating for me, right? It's just a shame, right? It's just a real shame that I can't find the clip to state exactly who it came from and what exactly was said. But it was indeed something along the line, something similar to what Minister Tufton had said and indicated nothing about the business of sports and the sporting industry. It was more along the lines of mental health and all of that other stuff that Minister Tufton was alluding to. Now I'm going to give a perfect example of how these athletes' success can contribute to GDP growth, just to make these people know that sports is no joke thing. You really have to take this thing seriously. This is a business and an industry, right? So we're talking about Shelly here, a millionaire that has already started to invest in the nation, creating jobs, economic activities, and so forth. So even before retiring, she has already started to get her feet wet in the entrepreneurial waters and will probably become even more involved in entrepreneurship upon retirement. If we create more Shelleys, Usains, and Johans, especially in other sports, by investing in the technical development of young athletes in other sports, we wouldn't even need to be going overseas to attract investment. It is reasonable to expect these athletes would make the foreign currency overseas and then take a lot, if not all of it here and invest. I am personally of the view that there are so many more Leon Baileys here going to waste because we aren't developing the athletic aspect of our human resources. We can use sports as a medium to create multi-millionaire investors here in Jamaica, and especially if we engage them in nation building and educate them in the ways of entrepreneurship and business practices, combined with the fact that these are young, fearless, ambitious, driven youths with a more modern view of the world who would be ready to invest. The likes of Bolt and Blake have also invested locally in business and infrastructure, right? We just did a video on Johan's world-class wellness and rehabilitation center for athletes. Bolt himself via sport has made over $250 million US, right? Think of the opportunities Bolt has created already and that 10 more Usain Bolts could create in the future if their resources were properly concentrated. Also, we can't forget about sports tourism and the benefits of it. When you look at the sand, sun, and beach aspect of our tourism sector, it is a very mature aspect of the tourism sector, which means there is very little room for growth or upside in this aspect of the tourism sector. And obviously, I'm no expert in this, but especially when you compare this aspect of tourism to sports tourism, there is certainly a lot more room for growth and expansion in the latter. But yet still, we still continue to focus on attracting overseas investment to build hotels rather than to build youth academies to produce more Leon Baileys, who was sold for over 20 million US and is worth a lot more right now, right? Once the necessary infrastructure and administrative framework to facilitate and nurture this talent is developed, we can have a vibrant sports industry and boost sports tourism dramatically and expand it beyond its current stage of infancy. All of this could add billions of dollars in GDP growth and create hundreds of thousands of jobs both directly and indirectly, right? And I was also trying to find the exact percentage that the sports industry currently contributes to the GDP. But unfortunately, I couldn't find the current data. But I did find data referring to the year 2008, and this data alluded to the sports industry contributing to 2% of the nation's GDP and also accounting for 22,000 people being employed, right? And these 22,000 were paid a collective of US $700 million. So if this was in '08, I am pretty certain that the numbers are even greater now. Again, people, the authorities are preventing the restart of almost the entire sporting industry for reasons unknown to me anyways, preventing the livelihoods of tens of thousands of people. But with all of this being said, I just want to give you guys an idea of how Jamaica is being run backwards and how shockingly little attention is paid towards non-traditional sectors like sports in the island. Before the pandemic, the last time I heard, the sector responsible for the most jobs in the country was the entertainment sector, which was said to employ over 400,000 people both directly and indirectly. But yet still shockingly, this is still the most underdeveloped sector in the island. Now people, tell me how on God's earth that even makes sense. Because I personally cannot wrap my little brain around that. Right? It just doesn't make any sense. We don't give widespread support to non-traditional sectors in this country. And guys, don't let our success in track and field fool you either. I am personally of the view that all the stars just perfectly aligned by accident, and we plain and simply stumbled upon a system that worked and produced world stars. I personally don't think that the working system we have in track and field was planned to the T, but of course this is just my opinion. Now, separate and apart from all of this though, the most important aspect of this entire debacle that we must not forget is that everyone else, barring those who have been fired for financial reasons, are working except for the athletes. Guys, this is their livelihood we are talking about here. How are these people going to feed their families? And Shelly even alluded to this when she spoke about no funding mechanism currently in place to assist those who are struggling badly due to the lack of finances. And we're not even going to mention that this year is a big year for a number of Jamaican athletes, many of whom need to prepare for upcoming overseas competitions like the Olympics, World Cup qualifiers, and the Gold Cup, amongst many other international competitions. And the harsh reality is the rest of the world ain't waiting on us, right? The World Cup qualifiers is still going to go ahead, the Gold Cup, and by all intents and purposes, the Olympic Games as well. So another big question is, how will it look if our nation's athletes go to Tokyo and embarrass themselves and the country internationally because they were not adequately prepared? And especially with the restrictions on travel, the ability to participate in overseas competitions for some athletes might be a bit sticky. All of this can negatively affect brand Jamaica. Again, a brand that we have not even started to exploit. Plus, how are we going to select a team to go to Tokyo when you can't even have an Olympic national trials because the leadership refuses to make the common sense decision. So guys, Shelly is the highest profiled athlete that I have heard make this plea, and truth be told, there is none currently higher than her. So I don't know if this plea coming from an international star and national icon like Shelly will have an impact on the policymakers. We will just have to wait and see. I only hope that the recent spike does not stop the resumption of sports, because to me this would just be absurd. Alright guys, that's my 2 cents. Enjoy the rest of your day. Please remember to like and subscribe, and until next time.